It's so stupid, it's positively brilliant.
The Brilliant Reports podcast.
Could we do a podcast pro tip? I mean, I don't know if it's a pro tip, but this is what I've seen.
Okay.
Podcasts are multi-platform. Everything's multi-platform.
Absolutely. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like even if you look at a show like The Breakfast Club, it's radio, it's YouTube, it's social media, and it's the podcast. Podcasts are audio and the visual, right? But the main thing is the audio.
Audio, absolutely.
That's where the advertisers spend the money at. It's with the audio. YouTube is great, you know what I mean? But that's a whole other revenue check for people. But I think nowadays you have people launching podcasts starting with YouTube. I don't know if that's the best idea.
I agree with you. And I think that when you have the video component, especially early on, it takes away from the focus in making sure your audio is really good.
Absolutely.
Especially because, again, as a podcast, people are going to listen to you. A lot of people want to perform for a camera. And unfortunately, as an audio listener, that's the only way I listen to podcasts is audio. I'm not watching you. Yeah. So, you know, I guess, that was a good pro tip.
I think
I disagree.
But you're big on YouTube.
You have utilized that formula of clips and visual to drive them to the podcast.
The reason why I disagree is because it's hard to discover a podcast on these audio platforms.
Is it?
I don't think that at all.
I disagree.
How do you find Brilliant Idiots?
No. Discover a new podcast. For example, like there are people who will discover Brilliant Idiots from a clip talking about a subject that's near and dear to them, but they might have no clue who the fuck we are. But they really care about red plastic cups. And we do a funny clip about red plastic cups, and then we put it on YouTube. And they're watching videos and videos about red plastic cups, and all of a sudden these two assholes start talking about red plastic cups, and they're like, holy shit, these guys are kind of funny. What else do they talk about?
Oh, you mean like the algorithm? They get fed the algorithm?
In their algorithm, they have the opportunity to discover, right? That's
like
why
a music track. It's going to play you something simpler. But
here's the thing. What I was so big on video, the reason I was so big on video for specifically our podcast in the beginning is also when there's a story that hits, right? Like, for example, we talked about Tekashi on this podcast. The first time you ever talked about it was on this podcast. That generated 2 million views. We don't do 2 million listens.
Yes, we do.
Not per episode.
Yes, we do.
Not per episode.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't. I know the numbers. Trust me, we don't.
2.2 right now.
A month.
A month. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I said per episode.
Never mind. You're right.
So what I'm saying is what that did is that brought us in front of a whole bunch of different eyeballs, and some of them might be able to discover a podcast and then really start to like it and really appreciate it, especially in the beginning. Like in the beginning time when we would put out clips and there was way less going on in the podcast world, literally anything with your name on it would just go through the roof because people were just so... They needed to devour whatever the fuck you were just saying. It was really amazing to watch. And we got so much growth because there are so many people that knew you but didn't even know you had a podcast.
Yeah, but
now that happens with me and stand-up and these things.
Yeah, but like, with Flagrant, y'all grew that with audio.
No, that's always video from the beginning.
Always been video?
Always been video from the beginning.
Really?
But see,
and we would, and I'm not to cut you. I do want to hear your point, but like.
But isn't Patreon audio or is that video?
Patreon's both.
Okay.
So it's like what we did is Patreon's a whole different thing, but what I think is having that video component is just the best advertising for your podcast because there is this YouTube algorithm that's going to push things in your face. There's no algorithm for audio yet. You're never scrolling just a random podcast feed on your like a podcast app and they go, I'll try these people.
Well, no, on Apple it is. On Apple, it like I don't know how. It's
just not a behavior because it's so long. Like a 2-hour podcast is too much to digest for the first time, not knowing who the hosts are. But 5 minutes on a clip about a content that you really enjoy.
I agree with that. But Apple will recommend to you podcasts based off what you've listened before. Yeah.
That's what I was
such a big barrier of entry. 2 hours, you know.
But it's also people that choose that app for that thing, opposed to YouTube, where is that actually where you only listen to podcasts, or are you watching Andrew Schulz because of stand-up clips, or maybe found him through another clip and now you're watching a podcast? I feel like the reason Apple does it better is because more like this, people have found us through Joe Rogan. He had maybe a porn star on once, and then Horrible Decisions was on next.
Speaking of that, that's why Horrible's numbers are through the roof right now. I mean, it's promo and marketing because of Black Effect as well, but the fact that they went on, what was y'all on? Call Me Daddy?
Oh no, we had the ex-call her daddy girl.
Y'all on one of them shows.
And then all those.
We brought a white counterpart.
The white people were there like, why?
The whites came over.
I
had to be Dr. Umar the next week. I was like, listen, this is an Africans only podcast. You're lucky you're here.
We went from 27 white listeners to 29 real quick.
Y'all went way up. I'm just saying, having that type of opportunity to have your content advertised for free by YouTube. It's just like it's a no-brainer, and also social, having the clips go viral on Twitter and Instagram.
For free. Oh, y'all paid to have us on that little featured page?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I know we don't. I'm just saying we never pay, but our clips just will go viral. It happens with Flagrant all the time. We'll be talking about Ellen, and then all of a sudden people will discover it. But the thing about YouTube also is like I did Rogan once. I had a TED Talk, right? All of a sudden, there's this synergy between audiences that the algorithm knows about. So I go do Rogan, and my stand-up clips are getting, popping, whatever. All of a sudden, this TED Talk I do goes viral. And I think it's over 2 million right now. But it's because all those listeners of Rogan also like TED Talks. So YouTube starts going, watch, you like this guy? You probably going to like this guy's TED Talk because you guys like TED Talks.
You did that a while ago, didn't you?
Long time ago. It was the second time I went on.
I was surprised you didn't even pub that more. It was a good TED Talk.
Yeah, it was fun. No, I loved it. I was
feel like
really
that's
cool.
the pinnacle of like entertainment. Like I made it, a TED Talk.
That's like the pinnacle of like white... I talk for a livingness.
Stacey Abrams TED Talk.
You know who got a good TED Talk? Wallow, bro.
Yeah.
Wallow got a fire TED Talk.
Oh, he's great.
Oh, I gotta watch that.
Wallow got a fire TED Talk. Chris, where you at? I want to ask you something. Is he on?
Yo.
Talk to us about the audio video thing real quick. Give some tips.
Well, I mean, I think what Andrew says makes sense. I mean, I think the issue in podcasting is discoverability, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, YouTube's algorithm is a lot more friendly towards that than iTunes or even probably Spotify. But I think the thing you always have to try to balance that out with is that, and I think you mentioned that earlier, is that an audio listen is worth more than a video view, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you're comparing it one-to-one, right? And it's not always a one-to-one comparison, but just in terms of something like a CPM, audio is worth more. Now, as more people kind of migrate towards video in the podcasting space, you might see the prices come down and meet somewhere in the middle. But right now, certainly audio listen is worth more. The question is, obviously the community on a place like YouTube is just tremendously bigger than the podcasting space right now. There's more things out there. So it's really, I think, curation and discoverability are just the two issues that everyone's trying to figure out.
Yeah, right so now. Videos would be for promo and marketing. Right. And audio would be for the dollars.
I mean, it's not exactly accurate that they're worth more.
Yes, it is.
But how? When advertisers
I have an advertising agency.
I have a podcast network.
I sell the ads.
Come on.
If I showed you, I'm going to give you a peek. I'm going to give you a peek. I'm going to give you a peek.
All right.
I'm going to give you a peek.
Yeah.
Because you my man. And I feel like you should share information and show people what's possible and what's out there.
I'm just saying, I sell the ads for this podcast and Flagrant, and I sell them based on the YouTube views and the audio views, and they don't get counted differently. It's a grand total of them both.
But I think what he's saying is if it was solely YouTube, right? Even I'm sure when you get paid through Google or YouTube. Right. It is different from the CPM. I mean, Chris taught us that. Shout out to Chris, by the way, who put Horrible Decisions on.
Yeah, and I've seen the Brilliant Idiots and
But that CPM was so important when we were getting paid, and he taught me a lot about that.
Bro, it is what it is.
It's good. It's cool.
I'm telling you.
You can merge them for both, opposed to people on YouTube who can't do that.
What I would say is this. Technically, in terms of like an advertiser scale, right? In the way that we calculate them, they're the same. But what Chris is 100% right about is that an audio listen is more valuable in a way because the amount of time an audio person spends on a podcast is longer than video.
Yeah, that's what they're paying for.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think in that regard, it's more valuable. But monetarily speaking, in terms of like, if you get 200,000 views and 200,000 listens, you still charging the company you're advertising on 400,000.
You know what I'm saying that I'm not explaining? An ad read versus a YouTube ad. Let me clarify that.
The drop-in ads
compared to an ad read.
That's totally different.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about.
But that's what he's talking about, and that's what.
Yeah, but you're talking about YouTube ad. I'm talking about ad read.
Right.
No, I'm talking about ad reads. Like the ad reads are the combination of both of those view counts. and listen counts together.
Right.
Oh, so you put the ad reads in the videos?
Yes, of course.
No, I'm saying I wonder if we're cutting our nose off despite our face in that situation. It feels like you're giving away a 2-for-1.
No. Trust me.
I'm gonna give you a peek.
Just trust me.
I'm gonna give you a peek, and I'm gonna
Just
watch that
me.
nose get
Just
hard.
trust me, bro. Just trust me.
Yo, should we get a rule out while you guys
Y'all are really measuring
I was
this
just
here.
saying, bro.
No, it's not. It's all business. Like, we don't.
I get it.
Yeah, we don't compete over here. We're
I want. Hey, listen. If we can make more money,
Hell
by
yeah.
all means, let's make more money.
Absolutely.
All I'm saying is, like, from my understanding of the business, I can only express my understanding of the business. It used to be that they didn't care about the video ads in the early, or the video views in the early days. And now, since so many podcasts are watched, right? All of a sudden, those ads count, and they are way more valuable than they used to be. And now they're equivalent in terms of the overall number that
I think it depends on the podcast.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like, for example,
it's
Flagrant.
platform based.
Yeah,
what you're saying is true, but
Absolutely.
there's a movement within podcasts in some parts of the podcasting space to not count YouTube. It's all going to shake out one way or the other. But what you're saying right now is 100% correct.
And the reality is there are certain podcasts that are just, at the end of the day, it's like, do your listeners fuck with what you are telling them is good in those ads, right? Like, there's a podcast, obviously, like The Read, right, which has like insane synergy with their fans.
Unbelievable.
And the things that they suggest to their fans, which I assume they actually believe in really strongly, their fans buy. So it don't matter if it's video or audio. I know they only do audio. They could say, nah, we want the highest CPM because we know we deliver.
Yep.
There are certain podcasts that do big numbers, but they can't sell a single thing.
That's a fact.
So their
very
CPM
true.
goes down, right? So at the end of the day, it's not just a numbers game. You know, Flagrant, we kill it. So we can charge
You guys
a very
have
high
good ads for you. Like when we did, and I don't want to say them anymore because they don't pay us, but Chris, you know, when we did a sex toy company and certain sex pills
they
or whatever,
kept coming back.
that's our shit. People
we
will
told
stop me in the street like, what's the code again, bitch?
And we told Chris, we were like, you need to get Mo.
Yeah,
Get Mo because
yeah.
they're
Feminine
using
product
our
companies,
code.
people love using those codes. By the way, I use the Reads code too because I fuck with the Read. Before I even went to Squarespace, I'm like, I Googled the Reads codes. When you fuck with a podcast, you want them to make money.
This is good podcast 101 for anybody out there that's listening.
But you should be paying What the Fuck Media for the rest of their
But what I like
and if you
too,
have a podcast,
listening-
you should have ads.
But also listening to both of y'all, this also goes to show, also with Chris being on, there is still not really a blueprint to how you can do this, which is amazing. Like you could sit here and be like, nah, I know what I'm talking about because I make money. Charlamagne sits here is like, nah, but I make money. And then Weezy and I have the experiences also not owning, you know, I mean, we own our IP.
I can tell you how
stuff,
not to make money.
You
have to read ads. You have to have ads on your podcast.
I 100% agree.
Like you have to.
Like honestly, I was terrified that joining the Black Effect, we wouldn't have ad reads. I thought that before we understood what the business would be, I thought, you know what, like we're gonna just basically have to pay to play, like a luminary type of thing, and I don't want that. I don't want anybody to ever have to pay for Horrible Decision in a place that's not accessible. Or like, I want to keep growing. I don't want you to stop finding us. And the fact that we could do ad reads, I love it, especially when our ad reads are fun. Like I said with Blue Chew, I used to say, you know, put your dick in a bitch's mouth and break a tooth with Blue Chew. I love that.
Jesus
I want
Christ.
people to buy
Why
that.
that's so violent?
Yo,
Niggas want to fuck bitches like that.
We choose violence. We choosing violence over here.
Jesus Christ.
And girls are like, yeah, I want that dick in my mouth. It really works.
but yes, it's an evolving business.
It is. Absolutely.
And it's so new, man.
But it is gravitating more towards video as people are spending more and more time on YouTube and as podcasts have grown.
But that's because people ain't got jobs right now.
But it's also because the YouTube space is where podcasts grow.
It's different.
I'm just thinking like
that too. Yes.
I can't think of a new podcast that popped without video.